Now then, shredders, you've been getting comfortable on those mellow jumps, but you fancy having a go at some steep takeoffs like this one. This video is going to help you figure out how to tackle steeper jumps and also how to string a line of steep jumps together, so stay tuned. So you might remember from my other jumping video that I talked about a preload, a pop and a scoop, but on a jump like this, the ground is shaped in such a way that it's really going to propel you up into the air, and you almost don't really need to do anything. You just ride up it and you're going to take off. Obviously there's a little bit more to it than that, but you do have a little bit more leeway with a steep lip compared to a mellower one where you need to make a bit more input to actually leave the ground. Let me give you a couple of examples. So if I ride this and I keep a fairly strong position in my arms, and as I take off I snap my legs straight, I'm really going to boost up into the air and fly off like a rocket. Whereas if I do the opposite and don't really do anything and have quite soft elbows, my front wheel's going to get pushed back into me, my elbows are going to come back, and you'll notice I didn't straighten my knees either. And that's it, that's all you need to know. Really? Well, all right, there's a few other little things that I can tell you about. Hopefully it's not going to get too complicated and fry your brain completely. Let's get into it. But before we do, I'm going to give you some tips on how to string together a line of jumps like these. You've often got your landing and then the next jump really close together. So you've got to figure out how to land, recover your stance and be ready for the next one in quite quick succession. And that in itself can be a learning process. Now, if we come back and have a look at this landing again, generally speaking, a well-built set of dirt jumps, if you get the landing of the preceding jump bob on, nice and smooth, perfect one could say, it means you're going to have the right amount of speed for the next jump. Now, obviously, if you catch your back wheel on the landing of that jump, you've obviously not got quite enough speed, and at that point, if there's another jump in the line, you probably need to stop because it's not going to get any better. But did you know that if you overshoot, that can also rob you of speed and cause you to case or come up short on the next jump as well? And the reason for that is if, let's imagine that you've landed down here, it's going to be a pretty heavy landing, there's going to be quite a lot of deformation in the tyres, which is going to rob you of forward momentum, of energy that's driving you forward. And that rings true for any kind of jump. If you're struggling to get the speed right, to get this enough speed to clear the next jump smoothly, the problem could lie in the landing of the preceding jump. So just take a moment to analyse what you're doing. Are you landing smoothly? Are you overshooting? Are you just ever so slightly tagging the top of that? That could be where the solution lies to get you over the next jump. If you've done that and you're still struggling with the next jump, you're going to need to throw in a little bit more speed. So let's find out how we do that, because you could just pedal, but there's an unwritten rule of trails, dirt jumps, that you're not allowed to pedal between the jumps. It's got to be down to all that superb bike handling technique and skill that you've got. And there's actually quite a good reason to avoid this sort of mechanical assistance, and that is that it can actually kind of unsettle you on the bike. If you put in a crank or you brake, you just might feel a tiny bit of inertia on the bike that's just going to unsettle you slightly and have an effect on how you handle the next jump. Of course, if it's the first jump in the pack that you're not getting quite enough speed for, then throwing in an extra pedal just to get you over it is absolutely fine. But if it's mid-pack, you want to try and find another way to generate some speed. Got any ideas? Yes, pumping! You got it! So we might have a pump bump like this one that we can use to generate some speed, or we might have to pump the landing. So you can pump the landing by pushing down extra hard into the ground through your feet primarily, but a little bit in your hands as well. And this is going to give you a little boost of extra speed. You can pump the takeoff in a very similar way. You push through your feet and a little bit in the hands into the takeoff. And if you add into that a boosty takeoff, really snapping those legs straight as you leave the ground, you're going to get more distance on the jump. So I'd recommend that you try one of these 3 techniques at a time, because if you do all 3 of them all at once, you're probably going to end up landing to flat, and nobody wants that. So what happens if you keep overshooting a jump? Well, you guessed it, you do the inverse of all of these things. When you land, don't try and pump into the landing, just land. And then another thing you can do on the actual takeoff itself is keep your elbows quite soft, and as you go up, the takeoff kind of pushes against the front wheel, and if your elbows are soft, that's just going to mean that the front wheel can come back towards you, and as you take off, rather than snapping the legs straight, just kind of stay like this, and that's going to keep you low over the jump, kind of racer, some people call it. And usually that absorption of the kick that the lip's going to give you will stop you going too far and solve the problem of overshooting. Once again, try each one of these speed sucking techniques one at a time. Dirt jumping can really be about trial and error, but once you've got an idea of how to generate different outcomes on each jump, you can start perfecting the line as you go through. And that's one of the great things, or what I personally absolutely love about dirt jumping, is the fact that you've got to dial each jump. You've got to figure out whether you've got to boost, whether you need to hold it down, or whether you can just do nothing. And it's just addictive. So what's the best kind of bike to ride dirt jumps, steep dirt jumps? It's going to be a little hardtail like this one, although you now can get little short suspension, full suspension bikes which are designed for dirt jumping as well, more for like the slope style stuff. But the key things to notice on this is I've got flat pedals on, because you don't want to be riding clips. If you're clipped in and you need to disconnect yourself from the bike because you're making a mistake, it's not going to be very easy. So flat pedals for the win. Pump your tyres up. So I've got about 45 psi in my tyres, and the reason for that is because when you take off, the force that you're pushing through the tyres into the takeoff, and the same when you land, it will squish the tyres. The less they squish, the more forward momentum you're going to maintain. If they are really soft and they really squished as I landed, that would rob me of speed to get over the next jump. So that's why I got my tyres quite hard. I've got one brake, one gear, 100mm suspension fork, which is brilliant, just takes the sting out of any harsh landings. Nice RockShox Pike DJ, really nice pair of forks actually. And that keeps the bike really simple. I've got my saddle down, well out of the way, so I can really move around on the bike. But the simplicity of the bike means that if you do need to throw it away or let it go over the jump without you, there's less to break. Over time, you're going to build experience of how to deal with each different jump. Sometimes it's going to be frustrating, but it's also going to be really satisfying when you get it right. That reminds me, rather than doing a straight air, I personally find it's quite helpful to kind of do something in the air. And for me, that turns out to be that I turn my bars a little bit, bring my chest a little bit towards them as well, and then push the bike back down into the landing. That style has come naturally to me. I didn't really purposely figure it out, and most people do have a natural style, so you'll probably discover yours. And that's why I don't really have much to say about what to do in the air, because it does tend to come naturally. That said, I will explain what I do in the air. So I take off, I keep my legs straight for a little moment until I've spotted the landing, and then I start to scoop with my feet. And then as I'm really coming to landing, I kind of push my arms forward a little bit just to extend as the front wheel comes into contact with the ground. Back wheel swiftly follows, and I continue. If I didn't scoop with my feet and kind of start to push the front wheel down in, I'd probably end up doing what you might call a manual lander, which can be really scary on a steep landing. That's to land back wheel first, and it also can rob you of speed for the next jump. But sometimes you might feel the need to do it on purpose. For example, if you think that you're going to tap the front wheel on the landing, like in this example here, I just push the front of the bike forward just to get the front just that bit further over. And I did tag with the back wheel, but I was kind of prepared for it, so I got away with it. And that can be a kind of good way of getting out of a bit of a danger situation. If you're going to do it on purpose. Try not to do it by accident, because it's really scary. Whew. So I hope that's given you plenty to think about. Hopefully give you a few little tips on how to deal with these steep jumps. But don't forget that it is trial and error, because each jump can be ever so slightly different, and each rider can deal with them ever so slightly differently. But as always, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to leave them in the box below. I'll try and help you out. Otherwise, I'm going to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.